Okay, I'd like to call the K1 Broadband Internet Commission to order. Start with just attending. You want to start?
Yep, my name is Luis Rodriguez. I'm one of the commissioners.
Rob Capone.
Jeff Abrams.
Gary Lau.
Ash Chikrin.
Suzanne Woodland, Regulatory Counsel.
Stephanie Secord, Public Information Officer.
Right. First, just at Lewis's suggestion, I don't know if we want to switch things up just so if this gentleman has a public comment that you want to add, we could throw you up to the top so you don't have to sit through us, or if you're here.
No, actually, I'm curious. So.
Okay,
Excellent.
All right, so, all right, forget that. All right, so,
Excellent.
I guess jumping to the next item, approval of the minutes. Did I hear that there were some changes?
Ash emailed to suggest that we make a very slight adjustment to that sentence, which talks about the effect of water on cell service. And he suggested that instead of saying in that little space where it says water is too good, that it says is not good since water negatively affects cell signals because it can reflect, refract, and absorb radio waves. So just a slight rewording of that to make it clearer.
Yep.
About the challenges of water. So if you're good,
Do we need to make a motion to approve?
you could approve with the amendment as described.
Yes.
And so, yeah, so your motion.
Motion to approve.
I'll second, all in favor?
All right,
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you, Ash.
good information.
All right, so some follow-up from our discussion with Verizon representatives at the last meeting. We didn't have, because we were constrained for time, I thought a couple of things. First, it would give you, the committee, a chance to talk, more about kind of what you heard and, any thoughts on that. I could report back on a couple of things. The water tower on Constitution came up. And so I've since done some research on that and can report back on that. So that was kind of my thinking, that we'd have a little time to kind of talk about that and report back and see what, if anything, further we might want to do, if anything, with Verizon right now. And then if there's anything different you'd like me to do when we set up, hopefully, a conversation with AT&T and other representatives. So that was what was in my head for covering. So I can first start off with the question of the water tower.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because there's quite a conversation about that.
Can I add something, please?
Sure.
After you gave him an explanation of why the water tower wouldn't work, I was in sales. You guys are all tech geniuses, but I was in sales and marketing. I know body language, and he circled back at least 2 to 3 times about the water tower after you told him.
Yeah.
Okay? So that means you just gotta listen to people. So in retrospect to that, I don't know if there's any way about circumventing that, because the water tower is a home run for them, because it's bad cell service. I know where that's located, in Rye. So they'd be killing 2 birds with 1 stone.
Yeah, I think that's
So
what Suzanne's gonna try and investigate it, if we can try and
Yeah,
get some sort of, I don't know, she's gonna see where the loopholes, she's gonna find the loophole, hopefully, if there's one.
but
If
you
there's one.
gotta present it. It's sales. Like,
Yeah.
it's good for them, okay? It's not all being nice all the time.
Yeah.
Well, it's a non-issue in this, or it's not really a path to pursue, because we looked at the deeds pursuant to which the city maintains a water tower on the site. And as they had heard correctly from the city in the past, there is a restriction on that property for municipal purpose only, for the water purpose. So that is why there is no infrastructure up there right now for private companies to provide cell service, because the current deed restriction does not allow it.
We
Now-
gain income if somehow we could find a way around it from them having the tower on the water tower?
Oh, certainly,
Okay.
yes, we could.
Okay.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
There's definitely all positives. I think that
Right.
the issue is it literally just comes down to the restrictions that are put forth. And then, I mean, again, we can. What we're probably gonna be looking at is every way in which what we can do about it, and if it's literally, nothing, then
So
we can keep trying.
the deed restriction is, it's a little atypical. And in fact, I haven't seen one quite like this
Right.
on any other city property.
Sounds promising.
But I know I've heard of them and they exist. They are the restriction is literally pegged to 20 years after the lifetime of, a person, one of the grantors of the company, dying. So I looked to see whether the people referenced in the deed who were part of the original company that developed that, whether they looked like they were still alive and whether the 20 years had run, and it looks like, oh, nope, there's at least one of them is still alive. Living in Massachusetts, and I'm like, okay, so this deed restriction will eventually go away. But short of taking some affirmative action, to try and get it to go away, it's there. And I think, we could have some further conversation, maybe not in public session, about the legal processes and options, but just know that, there's a reason why there's not already infrastructure up there now, because indeed there is a deed restriction that would not allow the particular use for cell phone service.
And just
So-
for clarity on
Yeah.
the system, a private entity company owns the land,
We own the land,
the city owns the
City owns
land.
yeah, city-owned land, but as
We have
Is
to
the
maintain
case-
it also. Or no,
The water tower isn't
Water-
this,
ours,
is that?
we have to
Is-
maintain that?
yes.
Where's I don't understand.
So it is, when you buy a piece of property or obtain a piece of property, it is possible that your property comes with restrictions. So for example, the most common one is for conservation purposes or for recreation purposes. Some of our older deeds are for religious purposes because they originally had a church on them before we eventually got them. So there are different restrictions on some pieces of our property, and it turns out that indeed Verizon was informed correctly that there is a restriction that is alive and well at the moment that limits the use to basically the water tower.
I just met someone who bought a house that the deed,
Yeah.
this is all now clicking, yes, now I get it now, was to hand out creamsicles for Halloween. And it's in a neighborhood in like Massachusetts where it's like insane, and like they bought this house and they're like, we go through like hundreds.
I think that's cool.
So, well, I'm just saying, the power of the deed is now I'm, the fact that I got somebody who, they hate it, they're like, this is really difficult. So I get it now. Okay. Oof.
But, we're very aware of, we were all as a commission, and certainly having just had my hair cut today from a business that is in that community, that part of town, because I drove by the tank today. To the extent we can sometimes get word that a property is becoming available, or there might be some other piece that is there that could, possibly be leveraged for, solving, helping to solve this
Yeah,
issue.
my only thing with the tank, I assumed that there was gonna be some sort of like, I'm assuming Verizon know what's up, so I knew that there was gonna be some sort of barrier to entry on that. And my suggestion to the committee was just gonna be, let's wait until we have meetings with, let's say we have meetings with AT&T and whoever else we can
T-Mobile.
actually get into the room,
Yeah.
to come in.
Yeah.
If when that happens. And if they're all saying the same exact thing, okay, now then that's when we would probably maybe start going full force into like looking into this. And that's when we would go into private session, looking into the legal stuff, if this is really gonna be the linchpin. But so far, we just have Verizon telling us that they did present it as this, could be a public service to all the carriers essentially, because they would then also have a place to put their antennas, and this could solve many. And it's, they kind of alluded to many of the carriers are experiencing, as we know, the same issues. So so that was what I was gonna do, is kind of just like, back burner
Yeah.
it. She kind of verified.
Yep.
And we wait, and I wouldn't really push it further because it's there.
But that's just one.
Until, yeah, exactly. And if everybody's saying the same thing, and that's really, then maybe that's worth pursuing, or at least presenting to the higher ups in whether or not it's worth something that's worth pursuing, because otherwise, as you said, we would be relying on maybe other major build outs, infrastructure, land purchases, which may or may not happen. So
Another thing that he said I caught was about the timeline. It sounded like if we get this through, all of a sudden the timeline was gonna move up wicked quick about the increase in the better service. You mentioned that also. So I just want you to know where he's coming from. He's representing Verizon, and we're,
Sure.
but it's all about negotiations. There's yeses and nos, and we shouldn't dance. We should, anyways.
yeah, I mean, I just think that if we were like a private company or something like that, yeah, absolutely, and we would put resources at it, but our resources are limited, if kind of none at all. We're kind of just working off of, the limited time that we have of the public resources that we have available. So that's my thing, is I'm always trying to, we have to be very tactful as to where we do that. So that's why I was going to wait. And again, if all three companies are saying that that's something that we need to kind of go to bat for, yes, then I would say that's the approach. But until we hear back, I can't just do it for Verizon.
Can I ask a question?
Sure. Absolutely.
You mentioned that it's restricted to the municipality. Just for water, or could the city put another service using the tower? Because it's a municipal service.
We may have fire, like a fire service on it, but it's limited.
Okay.
And I don't remember I've been to bring a copy of it, and
All right, so if the city wanted to put like a backhaul wireless antenna to extend its internet connection
that would,
between sites.
that might be okay. Right now, there is an agreement with a company that does manage some of our other
Yep.
sites. And so we have an arrangement in the event that, when the restriction goes, there would be someone to manage, all the infrastructure up
Entity to
there.
manage
Yeah,
that infrastructure. And
exactly.
that could be a possible route.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the way that it was explained was essentially Verizon was like, look, basically, we just need that restriction lifted, the ability for a company, another entity, maybe it'd be owned by the town, to make it a municipality,
Right. Well,
to
when
build a tower. And once
somebody
the
to
tower
die,
is
and then
there.
20 years beyond that seems so,
Yeah, and then once that's there, then he's like, then it would be open game. Then Verizon would love to slap equipment on there, and you would AT&T would be reaching out to slap equipment on there. Everybody would be able to put their equipment on there, and and that would be an income source.
be a
Yeah.
good thing.
Exactly, and it would solve the issues.
Facilities in the city where that is done.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
as far as what Verizon, also just a little backstory, I don't know if you reviewed previous meeting, if not, don't stop me, if not, is that
I've looked
with
at one.
there's sort of more major towers, and then they have smaller systems that they can put on top of.
So 5G.
But if they were able to put something on the tower, it'd be a more of a major antenna that could then cover. And due to some of our surveys, we've just sort of concluded or verified that there's poor coverage all the way through Rye in a lot of that area. And that one tower could potentially fill all of this hole.
Oh, you'd want to put a macro array up there.
So-
Yeah,
Right.
that's what they
Macro,
proposed,
thank you. So,
exactly.
but I mean, it'd be nice, rather than putting a lot of the micros,
Yep.
having this as the one macro, it could potentially fill. So I think, yeah, it would be good to talk to the other carriers, but I'm
He also
Personally, I'm
mentioned,
wondering
he
if
also
moving
mentioned
forward.
that, he goes with a lease or whatever it's gonna be, long-term lease for the time, within reason. Well, if by some chance we can somehow circumvent this, we're holding the ball. We're, you know,
Yeah.
because it's gonna solve a lot of problems for them.
Yeah,
A lot of
exactly.
people complaining.
For
It's
us.
gonna,
And for us,
and
yeah.
us, but you gotta look at what he's thinking of, it's gonna solve, so we're, balls in our court if somehow we can circumvent this, that's all.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if
And
there's a
and
way.
I
that
don't
we
care
can
if it's
offer-
Verizon or AT&T or whoever.
I mean, yeah, it would be great if,
We're home with
rather
the
than
card.
just permitting companies to do this, if the town itself could be the beneficiary of this deal, you know what I mean? Like, rather than just like waving something and saying, yes, it can be done, and letting companies come in and do it, if there's a way, I don't know if there
There
are
is a lease agreement
similar.
um with a management company.
Okay.
And there's a stream of revenue that is this formula, as I recall. It's been a while since I looked at it. But if we wanna have more of those conversations, then I'm happy to set that up and we can do it in non-public, cause it might involve negotiations and what the legal options might be to consider, you know, is there any opportunity to relieve ourselves of that restriction? Cause I wouldn't wanna discuss any of that, right?
Yeah.
You know, in a public
Well,
forum, at least in the first instance. And probably bring in the deputy city attorney, who I think was the last person who was did the most recent update on the contract with the company that manages our
Okay.
our other facilities and sites. So if you are interested in that, then I'm more than happy to make that, you know, an additional effort, get some more information, and then we could make sure we're really teed up to have a non-public discussion relative to some legal options and, you know, our contractual relations with different entities and how that might play out.
what would
Yeah.
you, so what would you suggest, since you kind of know a lot more than we do, the sort of our outline to be for this, like the series of events is like, should we have that conversation before we talk to other companies? Should we kind of get this, you know? Now that it's become a complex process, now I'm thinking like, okay, maybe if we should just jump on this hunch, get the ball rolling, so that we can at least,
I
if
think-
if we talk to the other
I think we should
companies.
just, if you wouldn't, personally, I don't know, I'd like to hear from you guys. You've been pretty quiet. What are your thoughts?
So my take is, right now we have this restriction, right? So I agree, you know, we need to get some more players in the game and see if that's the direction they are also thinking of heading. Because, you know, I think the tower project is many carriers could tap into it, right? So if we could bring some more, then, you know, we have power by numbers and say, okay, that's the secret direction we can pursue. So right now, I know Verizon is pushing for it, but what's AT&T thinking? What's T-Mobile thinking? And you know, and if they know that we could be an ally for them in that battle, then we could actually focus where we want to go.
That was also my thought, is also, you know, this is also gonna be when it gets considered by the town as, you know, they might have to have lawyers go in to do, you know, paid lawyer work and, you know, go do stuff that this is gonna be an investment. So until, like, if we came and said all three carriers, major carriers would be putting, you know, and they can calculate what that type of revenue means to them, and we don't know yet. So yeah, that was kind of my thinking. My idea though was whether we should kind of just get the ball rolling on it preemptively, kind of know the same way that we knew that what the results of the survey were gonna be, the same way that we knew what the weak spots were, the same way that we, you know, if what they're saying makes sense, I doubt that they're gonna come in here and completely lead us awry. You know, the fact that he said, he's like, no, this would really clear things up. Anybody would love to put a tower on here. All three carriers would love, I think he even said that there was other things too. He said like any service can put, I don't know if that means radio or, you know, I don't know. But, you know, so that's why I was gonna default to you, is like, who should we talk to the expert? Should we start with this? Should we do this? Should we present it? You know, where should we go with it?
Yeah. Let me do this. When we settle on our next meeting date, let me reach out and gather some more information, including touching base with some of my colleagues in the legal department, and see if we schedule, you know, when we build our next agenda, that we have a section for non-meeting with council. And we can review in a little more detail how complicated or not, or what the options might be. And if at the same time, and, you know, we hear from, you know, AT&T or one of the other carriers that they're ready to, you know, do what Verizon did and, you know, send us a representative to talk to us. Doesn't mean we couldn't do it in the same meeting.
Right.
If we can get that. And I'm cognizant that it's November, so we're probably early December. And that can be a little challenging, but yeah, I think we can at least get a little more information on what those options are and what the structure looks like.
I gotta remember Tony Soprano. You've got one remaining person that was on the original company that did this. Have you talked to him and said, could we change this?
I
for the
wouldn't- I
benefit
wouldn't-
of the public?
I wouldn't wanna, and these are the kind of conversations I don't wanna have in public.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
I just wondered if there was a possibility of that.
So I
That's
think
happy to have a non-public discussion.
I'm actually,
Yeah.
now that I think I personally would like to do, just get a lay of the land. You know, 20,000 feet, get a look to see, like, talk with legal to see like how
I think
difficult is
that's
this
the
gonna
next-
be?
Yeah, I think that's.
If we
next.
could do
That's-
something like that, and again, closed session, I'm okay with initially, just to see, because if this is gonna be something that they're gonna be, it's not gonna go, then we don't have any further reason.
Yeah.
But if it is something that we can move forward with, we could definitely use it as a carrot to perhaps bring other carriers in to talk to us.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly.
As well as, and I do appreciate and understand, Jeff, that, you know, okay, they are a business, this would be a benefit to them. But it's also, I look at it as a win-win for us as well, because we're representing the people of Portsmouth that are having less than stellar service. And if it benefits them and it benefits the business at the same time, I guess I'm willing to look at that.
Yeah.
Right? I'm definitely, I understand where you're coming from too, like, okay, we can't just be rolling over and letting them just do it, but I'm sure that's not gonna be how it'll work. We will put a lease in place and we can go from there, but I think that I don't, do we need a motion on this, or
No, I can take that back and we'll, let us
Yeah.
know when we build out the next agenda. That
people
will,
okay with this?
Yeah, so I get my question will be answered in the next session, which will occur possibly mostly in private, or at least the questions will be better answered in private session when we talk to legal counsel and see the motions. But the reason that I kind of like interjected and like said, wait, hold on, what's this order, was because I don't wanna drag people in and learn about the legality, you know, like all these things to then just hit a hurdle in, you know, the future that we just hadn't gotten there yet, to find out like, oh, it's a hard no, like no, and waste, you know,
Right.
meet once a month. These hours are precious. So that was the only reason, was like, but I think, yeah, the next one will be the informative one. We can see what avenues we can pursue, what's worth pursuing, who's worth talking to, or if it's gonna be like, no, you know, this is it, this is what you can do, we're gonna have to look at alternatives or whatever it is, whatever the outcome of that meeting is. But that'll be what dictates who we talk to next. But then I agree, is if we do get any sort of traction, the next email to whoever we sent the initial email to is, we are, or I don't know if we want to do that, but we can keep it in our pocket, but it's a good attractant to, we have a potential something going on here, if, you know, we're gonna need your input,
Like your.
or we'd like your input, or we want your money, we'd like you to lease it and we'd like to own it, and that would be a great thing too. Like, you know, we'd like your service and your money, you know, it's beneficial all around. So I think, yeah, it's been 2 years I've been on this committee almost, and this is needed.
Right.
It's in my backyard. Yeah, so this is why I joined. So yeah, I'm very, you know, kind of excited. Definitely want to make sure that we try and make it happen. or something happen.
let me pull the various players and get some more information.
Yeah, I think the next meeting will be
We'll have
more.
a discussion
as to
in a-
what we
in a
can do, what we
setting where
can't
it-
do.
We don't have to disclose strategy or options.
Have we heard back from the other carriers at all, or has it been like a hold on, let me get you someone who, or has it just been kind of like? okay.
I've intentionally waited to see how things went with Verizon, because that was the big they were the big nut
Yeah,
in terms of what we saw for data, and knowing that we were waiting for more data to come in from the potential business side of the house, I figured, well, I'll wait, talk to you guys. Were you happy with kind of the format that we had? And then I was gonna ping them to say, hey, we've got this additional data.
but did you get,
you ready?
did we get like a return back at all from your, like?
I could have reached out with any just to
That's
say,
fine.
hey, we're doing this and we're gonna send you some
I was
information.
always coming, I was
Yeah.
already coming up with alternative, creative ways to ping them.
No, it's,
Twitter, there's
One
always
step.
somebody who's gotta
Yep.
do their job at like the social media account. So
I have
like
no problem.
City of
with-
Portsmouth account says, hey, got a question for you, you know, that
Yeah.
it seems to get run up the chain pretty quickly, but no, that's fine. We'll wait to hear back, but I thought it was very, very informative, so.
Okay.
If we have similar conversations with the other carriers, I think that would be really good.
Are we good with this for the moment?
Yes.
Jeff?
I second it.
Alright, so yeah, so we'll move on, okay? So the update on the cell phone service survey, for what it's worth, Stephanie.
Yes, so I did follow up with the chamber and they had all of their individual e-blasts, one topic filled out for the next 2 months. So all of the slots were taken, but they offered to put the link and a notice in their weekly I think it's every other week newsletter. So the request for businesses to participate was in their October 22nd newsletter. And we got 4 businesses who responded. So we're up to a total of 31 replies on our business side
Out of how many
survey.
that we sent out?
So there were
They sent
1,500.
So we didn't send it, the chamber did.
So the chamber newsletter goes to their full membership, which is, I think it's 3,000.
Oh, that's good return.
But yeah, our own CMS that Sean Clancy set up through the Economic Development Department, that theoretically had 3,000 signatories. It actually only had 1,500. So we got our initial 21 or so, 25 responses from that list. Both of these requests were to businesses, business owners or employees, and it just didn't get a lot of traction. But we got information out of them. I shared this with the graphs, and then I also brought tonight the printout of the spreadsheet that gives you a little bit more more individualized information. So my apologies for not stapling the pages, but there's 6 copies there, Suzanne, if you would share them.
Suffice to say, it's not a good number though that we got back, right?
From the business side, no.
Yeah.
It's not like,
So we, something we already knew anyways, but
it's not as useful as the consumer variation.
It's difficult, to determine who is really receiving and or answering the requests to. I mean, you know, a lot of times it's business email addresses that could just be being handled by a front desk person, and you know, they only, you know, you don't, it was kind of hard to.
and not all
To
were
get that
owners either.
information.
Some of them were managers. They weren't the proprietors.
Yes.
Franchisee.
So,
Right.
got it.
So, and some of the answers were cut off in the printout, but I think the real information, such as it is there. We also had the challenges we discussed last time of the actual distribution of the email. It just gets blocked by spam filters. It's very hard to do mass email blasts, but the traction that we get from the city newsletter that we did use for the consumer side is pretty good. And that's 6,000 names. Still not a huge return, but statistically significant. So that's where we are on that.
I will say the business that I went to today to get my locks shorn, which is out on Constitution. The owner came by because I said, hey, check your spam filter, see if if you got an email from us, and she did. And she said, I didn't get anything. And I said, well, you remember the chamber, because the chamber also sent out, in their newsletter, the information with the link for the survey. And she said, no, I'm not a member of the chamber. So, it was kind of indicative of the challenge that we have, like neither strategy for communicating with businesses seem to be effective. I think when we do a lot of our infrastructure projects in areas where there are businesses, what saves us is it's often door to door notices, and, sometimes even, you leave something if they're not there, and it's very specific and it's very labor intensive. But that's how we have to do it on the project side of the house. Now, because we're not trying to do the whole city, it's manageable. But I think that's part of what we've seen in our response. Since it was clear to me that from that conversation with the Verizon reps, that they are well aware of some of the challenges that they have with service. And, as we know, the residents were pretty good at, responding to give us enough to have a conversation with them to say, yeah, maybe we don't need more information from the businesses to continue the conversation. It would have been nice, but I could go either way. If you want us to try another method, or if we want to focus in on certain areas that we think there are issues, then I'm trying to think, maybe I could send my legal intern out.
So you actually
Notices.
suggest an interesting approach, which is that there is a list, an email list, for every DPW project, because they're the stakeholders, they're the people who care about when their sidewalks are getting done or getting ripped up, or the businesses on Von Mall, for example. And the process is typically, we have a public information meeting. We ask anybody who shows up at that meeting, and it's personal interest, so they do show up, to sign up to be informed. So we could have that kind of public information meeting, topic to be determined by this commission, when you get to conversations about, what's happening next. There was a comment on Facebook about the service in, I think it was Atlantic Heights, I don't honestly remember. When is the city gonna do something about it? So we legitimately, as public information officer, I said the commission is working on this issue. Keep track of our commission page, and you'll see as things develop. So it's an idea that at some point you might want to have a public conversation about self-service and hear from the people who are going to show up, or typically people who aren't happy. But that way you'll start building a list that then you can communicate. But then what do you want to do with it? With DPW projects, we've got ongoing needs to talk to them. You might only have a one-time conversation, and you're telling people that you're gonna keep them informed, and there's not a whole lot to say. So that's your call, but it is, building off Suzanne's idea of how do we reach people. The other question is, are there other business groups that any or each of you is a member of that we could talk to, make contacts with?
So yeah, I did mention I have contacts at UNH
Right.
and could possibly send something out. My main focus with reaching out to businesses was not only just to kind of get them on our side for presenting this, if again, after having the conversation that we have with Verizon, where they're like, no, let's do it, you know what I mean? Like, where we would need, well, no, where we'd have to fight, and like, we have this person and this person, and that wasn't necessarily the case. The other main focus for reaching out to the businesses was to also have in my back pocket, if Verizon during that meeting said, yeah, we're just really struggling on where to put these, even the shortwave 5G 5G antennas. And we could be like, well, we have a list of businesses that, are saying that they're really just, want to do something about fixing it. So maybe Jay will put something outside, jumping Jays, but I don't know.
Just want to make.
that
make
was kind of
connections
it.
Between the businesses.
Exactly,
and-
to kind of get that, and the fact that one, we're not having a fight with Verizon and tell them that, they need to fix their stuff and that people are disappointed. They know it, they want to fix it, they're trying to come up with creative ways to do it. They're running into roadblocks. Two, they're not saying that's a need. They're like, we got that, we got them on telephone poles, we're doing telephone poles, we're fine with telephone poles. So as far as the businesses, I've kind of lost interest in the fact.
Maybe we wait then and see.
Yeah,
if
I
we
don't
continue to
see
interact.
just the value in like putting in any
Yeah.
much more effort. When that, like, a real need does come up, that's when I wanna, like, send the bat signal. And I'll reach out to my contacts at you. I just, like, I don't wanna go through all that trouble for, again, nothing. This is good. It's good to know. I like seeing, the comments, especially these are really helpful. I think that you can see how people are circumnavigating these issues and suggesting using T-Mobile as an internet provider, and they're faster and cheaper than DSL Comcast. Comcast has a monopoly on the city, and these are all great comments. But I don't think that I want to put, and you guys can disagree with me if you'd like. It's just my 2 cents that I think we got enough out of the business
I think we know.
request. Yeah, that's what I mean. And we don't need to like
Beat it
fight,
to death.
fight with them and be like, well, we got these people, they're very accepting of where we say there are issues. So.
Under other business, I took a shot at drafting, with Stephanie's help, some language to update our webpage for the committee. Because as you recall, Verizon said, hey, if our individual resident is having issues in their home, particularly if that's their only phone, as we talked about, a lot of folks don't have their landline anymore. They told us they would follow up and give us the information that we could post on our website of how to get help. Yep. So they sent us that information. So what I thought I would do is work with Stephanie to update the webpage and put this newest information up front. And then I updated the section on background on the commission, which is on the current page to.
We're,
We'd formatted, I mean, it all looked,
yeah, okay, so
Kinda
it's
pretty on the
like, it
page.
would be right on the front page, right, latest updates.
yeah, hang on, let
Okay.
me, do you wanna pull up our webpage? Here, do you want me to do it? I can drive. Okay, yep. Sorry.
Yeah, that would
reach.
help keyboard. And where you have a full URL, our protocol on the webpage is, it would be a real words
Mhm.
with the link embedded, so you don't have the HTMS. Oh, it's just a quicker link.
I'm just wondering, like, eventually, so
Okay, it's got government.
eventually, let's say all the carriers have this type of option, which they do, and we can even work, and I'll see if I have time to do it, to draft it, because, this is just telling you how to get like the Wi-Fi calling. AT&T has the same thing. So AT&T has the exact same version sort of for them. So eventually, after this, I think this is good for like a latest updates, this is the information that we got. But eventually, this is probably gonna live somewhere on the FAQs. Did I already say that, or am I already?
So here's
Yeah.
where we are, here's what we have right now.
Hmm.
And earlier this month, a couple months ago, Stephanie updated to say, hey, there's a cell phone service survey out, which is why we're ready for updates. I suggested we make this first section and call it latest update.
Yeah.
And then we'll just keep that refreshed as things evolve. And And then this needed to be, this was a cut and paste from an old section, which I was like, oh, wait, you gotta fix that. So that's the little blurb that you see here. And then here's our, you know, background information where we did the prior survey related to cable. There's the franchise agreement. And then we have our FAQ that we worked on. So yeah, so if you've got other things or other ways you'd like to present this, but I wanted to grab that information that we got from Verizon and get it somewhere at least very forward facing. So that's why I thought we update this.
No, I like that. I really
And then
like having
eventually
like the
we can
latest
read.
updates right at the top, and it could just be the latest information that we can put
Yeah.
out. I think that's really cool. I'm just saying eventually, like, we're probably gonna have a section on this, and it's gonna be,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know where it would, I don't know if it would be on, you know, the,
Stephanie could come and mock
yeah,
something up.
we'd have to figure out like where it would live, because it's gonna be like for Verizon, there's gonna be these
Yep.
instructions. For AT&T, they have their own
Date.
Wi-Fi calling solution. They have
Do you
the
know
my
when they were posted, that this would know when
3G
they were
cell networks, or whatever they
Mhm.
call them.
This way we.
She says yes.
Yeah.
Of T-Mobile has anything.
Translating.
Yeah. I'm just updating the headers so we know which one is latest, what was posted. you
Yeah.
know.
Yep.
We do that. And, you know, we could do a table with all the carriers and.
Yeah,
you
and
know.
links to like the instructions. Yeah, I'm just thinking ahead, because
One question I do have is, do we have some sort of infrastructure in place to test the links regularly so that they, okay. Just don't wanna have a situation where we have links that dead and.
Right.
That does happen from time to
Oh,
time,
yeah,
and
no,
when people
but-
point it out, we
right.
try and fix it.
This thing, yeah, it would only further
Yeah.
frustrate people if the links that are no longer
here's the
valid.
answer to your
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
Maybe put like, something on this page, to report dead links.
Right. And
Email.
I'm sure it'll
make it a
get
clearing, like, yeah, I don't know, is that something that we can do? Like, I guess, I mean, I look at it as, yes, it make it a clearinghouse for, instead of the people need to look for, dig in the webpage looking for the information, if we can have
I
it.
think the
Make quick and
the
easy play.
website probably does that.
As
Like
long-
my WordPress site looks for, my WordPress
Right,
site
no,
checks on.
yeah, I'm
links.
moving on. So basically what I guess I'm just wondering, like, sort of the legal's the wrong word, but just making sure that, or is it okay for us to do something like that? Basically providing information, but it's to a commercial entity. Okay,
We can put a little disclaimer on it.
okay.
There's no way we couldn't piggyback when they send out the water bills or the real estate bills every 6 months that we could,
We try to limit, But we-
just curious from the city of Portsmouth brought, and then.
Not from us. There's maybe a committee someday that will be able to pull that string, but it's not gonna be us, that's for sure.
alright.
Mhm.
You guys good?
Maybe
Yeah, what
like
you're saying,
historical committee.
Suzanne, don't knock us off. Okay. All right, so does that work? We'll get the webpage updated? Okay.
Yeah, basically, and keeping it updated, I think.
Yeah, I think eventually we'll come up with like,
Yeah.
like a table, and we'll have the section on this, and yeah, we may need to figure out eventually how to like section out our website and to like, just because like, we're like people, internet, mobile, so have them, be able to find their way in those sort of broader sections might be easy, and as more information comes
As
up.
well as help people realize, perhaps better understand what we do.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, that was my item for other business.
Anybody else? Business? All right, public comment.
Circle back to public comment.
I missed your name, so yes.
Yes, sorry, we didn't catch your name.
I'm Jim Wilson.
Okay.
I'm looking for a home for a conversation that I had. I went to the September open house for the master plan visioning and asked a question about Portsmouth's digital infrastructure future. And got a lot of quizzical, looks, saying, I think we should be planning the digital future the same way we plan our sewage future, our water future, our road future. And it has as much economic and social impact on the city that, as any of those other facilities do. And I found that there is no such thing. So I went, oh, maybe there should be such a thing. So people seem really receptive to that conversation there. So I found this thing called the Internet or the Cable and Broadband Commission. So I thought I'd come here and see if this was a ripe ground for a conversation like that, or if something else needed to be done.
Well, I will say this as someone who's staffed this committee for 20 years in its various forms. Its mission has expanded over the course of my tenure, because originally it was just cable television, and the negotiations with the carrier, which has morphed over time in its corporate successions. So it really would be, whether the committee itself wanted to have this conversation. Probably, what was it, Rob? Maybe 10 years ago, we looked at community broadband as one component, I'm guessing, of your, an aspect of what could be part of a Portsmouth digital infrastructure future.
Yep.
So that was something we did look at quite some time ago. And I really intrigued. But, it really would be up to this commission to decide if they want to hear an initial conversation.
I think-
That's up to you
yeah,
guys.
I think
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember, were you part of it? Cause I think you're the next oldest as far as, but I think one of the things that was a roadblock to community broadband is there are restrictions in place that a municipal entity cannot enter into a something like this if there are appropriate equivalents of business equivalents, like we can't we can't put something in place that is gonna take and.
I think the laws have changed around that. That I think that a
Well,
bonding
what-
agency could
Yeah.
do exactly that.
Yeah, because it was the bonding, that was the problem. We
Right.
couldn't bond the infrastructure.
Yes.
So it may have changed.
Yeah,
That
so
was 10 years ago.
the environment has changed.
Yeah.
Especially with the delivery services, I mean, like internet no longer has to go over a cable, like there's probably so many nuances in this that, yes, like I'm sure things have
Passive
opened up.
optical network.
I mean, we'd be definitely, just to give you a complete platform, we would definitely be interested in hearing everything I'd be interested in hearing everything you've had to hear. You can go on our website and see exactly a detailed explanation of like what our committee does and what we have the ability to do. Again, it was mostly focused on the cable. This was prior to me, it was just mostly focused on the cable and managing the contracts with the city and how that worked and.
It was the cable franchise contract.
Exactly,
Yep.
and we still do that, but again, as Comcast sort of grew into an internet company, we've kind of morphed into that because now it's all kind of combined, and then then we've kind of morphed into now with the cellular providers being a big internet provider as well, so it's all kind of morphed and it's been very quick, even the past 2 years that I've been here. So I mean, what we have the ability to do is mostly facilitate conversation, I'd say. So if you have an interesting idea, we are more than happy to take you up on that and, push things
Put it on
forward.
the next agenda if you want to.
If we think, so that's what I think is like, we'd love to hear your ideas and see what, the same thing that we told the provider companies when we want to have a conversation with them is like, give us your ideas and how can we help facilitate these ideas to better the experience for the residents of Portsmouth. That's kind of like our goal. So yeah, I mean, absolutely. What we don't have funds, we don't have a budget, we don't have, so that's what we can offer. But that's what we can help you maybe seek, or if there's barriers to entry that need to be looked at with more scrutiny, that's what we can also help facilitate. But yeah, I mean, that's what we're all about. I wasn't here for the community broadband.
But it was 10 years ago.
Situation, so I don't even know what that is, but
Well, there were some, what was going on was that it was just as broadband was really starting to take off, and there were some locations in New Hampshire where the carriers just had decided, look, it's not cost effective for us to run. So places like, I believe Keene was one of them, because I don't know if Raja, but Keen was one because I know somebody, who I work with somebody who he's now taking advantage of it. Keen, it was determined that there wasn't a carrier that was willing to go in, so they were able to bond. And they were able to run gigabit fiber and Wayne lives like on a farm. He's a gentleman farmer among other things. And all of a sudden he was able to get gig fiber, whereas in the past it was like DSL and he was looking at like, I don't know, 120 or something, you know.
Cool.
And like, it was a really bad connection. And all of a sudden, and he was working from home too, because he's working, 2.5 hour drive to from Keene. So all of a sudden that was so pivotal. And one of the things I guess we were kind of hoping was that, okay, if something like that could happen, perhaps other towns would be like, hey, how come Keene got that? And is there anything we can do? And again, making changes to the regulations so that we could open things up. And I think but at the time it was kind of like, well, looks like it's not gonna
We
happen
looked
because
at
we
it
can't, we're not gonna
seriously.
be able to bond. And we sort of at that point, we're like, okay, close the file and put it away. We haven't revisited it since. And it might be again with the changes in the views out there.
Yeah,
and
certainly
it
the
might be worth-
regulatory environment is different now.
Mhm.
Certainly the technical environment is radically different now.
Yeah.
So.
Everything's worth a conversation. I think, yeah, this yields itself, I think, a whole meeting. So I mean, I'd love to give you the time. So if you'd like to just stick around for like the scheduling of the next meeting and see if maybe you can fit it in, that'd be great. Otherwise, we can you can also submit. I don't know, it takes a lot of time to type it all out, but whatever works for you.
I'm just here to
Um,
introduce the conversation.
But yeah, I mean, that's, yeah, this is the best kind of most exciting public comment that we've gotten. So yes, very happy to entertain it.
And again, it might be something like admittedly Cellular is sort of taking center stage right now, just because that's something we got on the table, but definitely it's something it'd be worth us taking another look at.
I have some background with that too.
Hmm.
Yeah. Nice.
I'm retired, so I'm just the cranky curmudgeon now. But I've been in the tech industry for a long time. Worked at IBM. I was on their corporate strategy team for the software group. I worked at Real Networks, which invented the audio and video on the internet. So I was the initial product manager for cellular video. So you watch something on your phone, we invented that. So I worked with the cell companies. We provided the infrastructure to Sprint. We did the video stuff for Singular, which became AT&T, that was going to roll out on this new thing that Apple was doing that they called, the iPhone. So I have some background with the cellular side. I have some background with the internet side and the fact that colleagues of mine are literally the inventors of the internet. And there's a lot of infrastructure that surrounds Portsmouth that is pretty spectacular, intellectually, for example. So there's an opportunity, in my view, to take advantage of a lot of those resources as well.
I will say this committee has room for an alternate
I was thinking the same
if you
thing.
wanted to apply.
And
You can,
I can certainly entertain that idea.
Yeah. And we'll be in touch for sure. We can if you'd like to attend the next one, see how it goes and
Yep,
care to join,
yep.
that'd be really cool, because you definitely sound like you have a wealth of knowledge. And the motivation to do something. That's kind of what brought me here. I came here 2 years ago, but I got caught up in the whole Comcast thing. It just took forever, and now we're finally
That's Comcast.
Yeah,
well,
we're finally hitting like
Yeah,
what
my
I.
sympathies right out.
So I'm finally seeing the fruits of my labor and getting onto the cellular coverage, which was what I joined for. And same thing. I came with the same question. I was like, is there something we can do about it? And somebody led me to this committee, and I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, well, here I am. Yeah, you can have a seat at the table and actually have a say in what happens, and have conversations with the carriers and the people in charge, and actually get answers. And it's beneficial in that sense.
So I'm getting the answer. This may be a good place to get started with that conversation.
yeah.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like I said, at the discretion of the committee.
right.
Yeah.
Did you want to leave your contact information?
I can do that.
Yeah, we'll grab it at the end for sure. We'll be bugging you. I'll be bugging you. Cool. I think so.
So are we good with public comment?
We'll get his info. We'll Set the next meeting.
All right, so we're good. So I schedule the next meeting.
Please.
Wednesday, the 10th. Could possibly do the 3rd. If you want to keep to your Wednesdays.
I'm good.
Either or, anybody?
Good.
10th? 10th? Okay,
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
at 5.
does that work for you? Do you?
Jim, yeah, you're
I'm sorry, what was the,
a somewhat formal invitation to, so our next meeting's, scheduled for December 10th
excellent.
at 5 o'clock. If you were interested in attending, we'd be happy to, you have your choice of seats.
Yeah, and if you can't make it in person, there's always the Zoom link available on the website, so you can always hop on and.
I'm
you know,
local.
So whatever works.
That's okay. Ash is local, but sometimes he's not around, so he will attend as long as we have quorum. We have had situations where, yeah, Gary also here. So. All right, people good?
Yep.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Second.
Okay. Thank you. Actually, Stephanie, again, thank you for continuing to put.
Sure.
Thank you.